It doesn't take much to make your credit score drop. One missed payment and suddenly you're struggling to get your apartment application approved. And if that wasn't enough, over a third of credit reports actually have errors in them. So naturally, you start looking for ways to fix it. Some people swear by DIY credit repair. Others push AI tools. But not everyone has the time, patience, or confidence to deal with multiple reports, disputes, deadlines, and follow-ups all on their own. That's where credit repair services come in. What is credit repair? In theory, you're paying for systems and real people to handle that process for you. But that's also where things might start to feel too good to be true. If someone says they can fix your credit, are you paying for real help or just a polished sales pitch aimed at people in a tough spot? So in this Credit Saint review, I'm breaking down how credit repair actually works, when it can genuinely help, and whether this service looks legit or just overpriced. But first, we need to understand what credit repair actually is. Put simply, it's the process of finding inaccurate, incomplete, or unverifiable information on your credit reports and then trying to get it corrected or removed. And that starts with taking a look at where your credit data comes from. Your credit report is built from information handled by three major credit bureaus: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Those are the three big players tracking what lenders report about you. And that matters more than people think, because an issue can show up on one report and not on another. So if you're using any kind of service for credit score repair, it needs to cover all three bureaus and not just one. That's also one of the clearer explanations on Credit Saint's public plans page. Their packages include making 3 challenges to the 3 credit bureaus. If you want to look at that while we go through this, the link is in the description. Now, the bureaus don't create this information out of thin air. They collect it from banks, lenders, credit card issuers, and collection agencies, which is exactly why mistakes can happen in the first place. And it's not hard to see how. Most Americans are using multiple credit cards at the same time. According to Experian, the average number of active credit cards in regular use was 3.7 per person in 2025. And once you add in loans, old accounts, balance changes, and payment updates, that's a lot of moving parts. And a lot of moving parts means more chances for something to go sideways. The most common credit report errors are exactly the kinds of things that can cause real problems fast. An account that doesn't belong to you, a payment marked late, even though it wasn't, wrong personal details like your name or address, or even a mixed up file where someone else's information ends up on your report. So this is where the legal part comes in. There's a federal law called the Fair Credit Reporting Act, or FCRA. In simple terms, it gives you the right to access your credit report, dispute inaccurate information, and have credit bureaus investigate those disputes. According to the FTC, once you file a dispute, the credit bureau generally has 30 days to investigate. But in some cases, the dispute time frame might extend to 45 days, provided that you lay out additional information. And if the disputed information turns out to be accurate, incomplete, or can't be verified, it has to be corrected or removed entirely. And that right there is the core of the whole industry. Credit repair companies are basically built around that process. They're not supposed to wave a wand and erase real debt. What they do, at least in the legitimate version of this business, is help you identify questionable items, file disputes, track deadlines, and keep a watchful eye on the process. So what is credit repair? It's not the shady backroom tricks that you might have imagined. The reality is a lot less dramatic. At its best, it's really an outsourced admin and strategy service built around your rights under credit reporting law. The next question, though, is how that actually looks in practice. To see how this works in the real world, let's use Credit Saint as an example. They've been around for about 2 decades, and whether you end up using them or not, they're a pretty clear case study for how this process usually works. From a user's perspective, it goes something like this. First, you sign up and give the company access to the information it needs to review your credit profile. Again, if you want to look at Credit Saint while we go through this, the sign-up link is down in the description. Then they pull your reports from all 3 bureaus and start reviewing them in detail. After that, their team looks for items that may actually be worth challenging. Once they've identified those items, they start the actual dispute process. That can include sending disputes to credit bureaus, contacting lenders, and using creditor intervention letters when needed. And this is where the service part really matters. They track responses, handle the back and forth, and stay on top of FCRA deadlines so the process keeps moving. If one approach doesn't work, they can repeat, escalate, or adjust the strategy based on how the bureaus and creditors respond. So that's how to repair credit in a nutshell. Review, dispute, follow up, and adapt over time. Now, at this point, some of you are probably thinking, okay, but aren't there AI tools that can already do some of this? Yes, and that's a fair question. If you've seen some flashy credit repair hack videos online, a lot of them make it sound like the whole thing is just generating a dispute letter fast. But that's only part of the process. The bigger difference with a real credit repair agency is that it's not just all automation. A legitimate credit repair business is supposed to combine systems with actual human judgment, knowing what to challenge, when to push, when to change strategy, and when a Goodwill request or direct creditor contact makes more sense than sending the same template again. And that's where agencies try to separate themselves from basic AI tools. Now, disputes are the starting point, but a real credit repair strategy goes beyond just sending a letter and waiting. One example of how they take it to the next level is by requesting goodwill adjustments or asking creditors to voluntarily remove negative marks even though they're technically accurate. Yeah, at first it sounds pretty weird. Why would a lender remove something that's technically accurate? Because sometimes it's in their interest to do it. If you had a real reason for missing a payment, you got the account back in good standing, and you've been consistent ever since, a creditor may decide that keeping you as a happy long-term customer matters more than holding on to that one negative mark. And they're also the ones furnishing that information in the first place, which means they may be able to update how it appears on your report if they choose to do so. And this isn't just internet folklore. One industry analysis of more than 500 Goodwill letter attempts found that roughly 1 in 3 ended in a successful removal. It's not a guarantee, obviously, but it does show that this can be a real strategy, not just one of those fake credit repair tricks that people throw around online. Then there's direct creditor contact. If a normal dispute doesn't fully resolve the problem, services like CreditSaint may also contact the creditor or furnisher directly. And yes, technically you can do that yourself too, but in practice, that's where a lot of people will hit a wall. It takes time, persistence, and knowing how to frame the issue so that it actually does get reviewed instead of just ignored. And then there's the least exciting part, but honestly maybe the most important: repetition. Sometimes what makes the difference isn't one perfect dispute, it's volume, timing, and adjusting the approach over time. A company may rework language, send additional documentation, escalate the dispute, or change who they're contacting based on how the first round played out. And that's really the point. The value of a legitimate service isn't supposed to be some secret loophole. It's supposed to be judgment, knowing when to dispute, when to push, when to ask for goodwill, when to go straight to the creditor, and when to change tactics entirely. That's where the human side is supposed to beat automation. If you want to check out CreditSaint's process while we keep going, the link is in the description. Continuing on, credit repair is one of those services people naturally give the side eye to. And honestly, sometimes for good reason, because some companies in this space absolutely overpromise. They imply guaranteed results, act like they can make accurate negative items disappear, or even charge serious money without doing much more than sending generic disputes. And that's exactly where credit repair's scammy reputation comes from. But legitimate services operate completely differently. A real service isn't supposed to promise that it can erase accurate debt or magically reset your credit report. That's not how this works. So, what makes CreditSaint look more legitimate than the sketchier end of the market? For one, it stays inside that legal framework we discussed earlier. It focuses on disputes, follow-ups, and communication with creditors and bureaus, not miracle claims. It also doesn't promise to remove accurate debt. And that matters because that's one of the clearest lines between a legitimate service and an unrealistic pitch. Then there's the refund policy. CreditSaint does offer a 90-day money-back guarantee if no questionable items are removed. But the policy does come with some conditions. You have to stay active in the program and meet the policy requirements during that window. This isn't your score didn't skyrocket, here's your money back type of promise. It's narrower than that. So they're not promising a full immediate fix, but they are confident enough in their process to stand behind a certain level of results, which suggests they're at least trying to position themselves as a process-driven business and not a shortcut machine. And that's really the difference. A scam sells fantasy, where a legitimate service is supposed to be transparent about what it can do, what it can't do, and why the process takes time. If you're wondering whether CreditSaint makes sense for your specific case, this is probably a good point to take a look at their site. click the link in the description below. Credit Saint has 3 plans, and the difference between them mostly comes down to how much support your case is going to need. Credit Polish is the basic option for simpler cases. Credit Removal adds more targeted features like inquiry targeting, personalized guidance, and real-time syncing. And Clean Slate is the most comprehensive, with unlimited disputes, full 3-bureau reporting, and loan readiness tools. So, the more complex your situation is, the more value you're supposed to get from the higher tiers. So no, unfortunately, credit repair isn't some magic fix. But if your report has questionable or inaccurate items, this kind of service can be useful. And that's the key difference. A legitimate service isn't selling shortcuts, it's managing the process for you. And that's the case Credit Saint is making. Real people, real follow-up, and a more hands-on approach than just sending automated disputes. If you like this Credit Saint review and want to take a closer look at the services they provide for your own situation, you can check them out below. Go get them.